So today we are going to have a special guest. I want to do more shows where I have guests, friends of mine on the show to hang out, shoot the shit. And I've really been looking forward to having this guest. I think this guest, this particular guest that I'm about to have on, our friendship is a living embodiment that trickle-down economics works. Because the way I think about it, this guest, he has a YouTube channel. I think he has 16,000 subscribers on YouTube. Much larger audience, much larger reach than I do. He sometimes gets videos, political commentary videos that get tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of views. And sometimes he mentions me, he shouts me out, talks about how hilarious and intelligent my commentary is.
You're goddamn right.
And so what happens is some of the people in his large audience, they trickle down over to my smaller channel, which has, as of today, just under 4,000 subscribers. They'll come to my channel, they'll become fans of mine, they might share my videos, my awesome videos with their friends and family. Then I get richer as a result of this trickle down from my guest who I'm about to introduce. Now, some of you in the audience, some of you know-it-alls, more educated people, you might be thinking to yourself, you might be pounding on your keyboard thinking, Kirk, that's not how trickle-down economics works. Some of you might be thinking, wait a minute, trickle-down economics, that's a total straw man from the left. What the hell are you talking about? And to that I would say, that was a joke, folks.
I made a funny.
That's what you get on the Kirk Wilcox show. I mean, look at this. What do you see when you come to my show? First thing you see what looks like Donkey Kong getting his ass eaten out by Jigglypuff. Check this out. It looks like he's enjoying it. Like his eyes are rolling in the back of his head right behind me with Jigglypuff, this Pokemon. He's like face first into Donkey Kong's big booty. And you're probably thinking, why does this guy have this weird-ass background of Donkey Kong getting his ass eaten by Jigglypuff? Here's the thing, is that's not what's going on in this picture. This is a screenshot from the video game Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Nintendo Wii. And for those who have not played this game, it's a family-friendly game put out by Nintendo, a family-friendly company. And for those who have not played this game, let me tell you, one thing that you cannot do in Smash Bros. Brawl is you cannot make the characters perform oral sex on each other. I know, I've tried many times. Anyway, where was I going? Oh yeah. That's why I have this background, because it's funny. That's why it's funny. It's because Donkey Kong is not getting his ass eaten by Jigglypuff. That's why it's funny. And that's why I have it on my background, because I want you guys to laugh. This is a comedy show. I want you guys to know that we're going to have fun here. Sometimes I make jokes. Sometimes I go off on 20, 25-minute rants about stupid socialists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Right now, when we have this no-holds-barred, Wild West hyper-capitalism.
Blow it out your ass.
Sometimes I'll make fun of crazy conservatives like clueless Candace Owens. Or sometimes I'll just go off on long commentaries for 25 minutes. I'll drop it in Final Cut Pro. I'll start to chop it up, and I'll think to myself, you know what? You know what I forgot to bring into this party? You know what I forgot to add to this commentary? I forgot to add punchlines.
Oh, you absolutely suck!
Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, my guest. So my guest today is a living embodiment of trickle-down economics. He makes amazing political commentary. You've probably heard of him. I'd rather watch this guy than anyone in the mainstream, whether it's idiots like Rachel Maddow on MSNBC or idiots like Tucker Carlson on Fox News. This guy gives everyone across the political spectrum hell. I think there are leftists who might call this guy an extreme right-wing fascist. People on the right might consider him a soy boy cuck who hates America. And to those critics, I would say,
blow it out your ass.
But nonetheless, I want to bring on my good friend. Please welcome to the show today, Stephen Michael Davis, folks. How's it going, Stephen?
Great. That was quite the monologue. Thank you for the introduction.
Oh, thank you.
How are you tonight?
I'm pumped up. This is my first live stream with a guest besides Rucka Ali, and usually when he comes, he's in person, so I don't really have to go through a lot of setup technical, and it's going great. We're live on YouTube right now. I should probably now tweet these links.
I tweeted out a link, too, if you want to retweet it.
All right, tweeting them out right now. Oh, you tweeted it out. Yeah, that's what you said. I didn't hear you clearly. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sometimes I get so excited I talk really fast. Just want to push all these words in my head out of my mouth as fast as I can. Anyway, so I want to ask you. So I think I found out about you through Adam Friended, who's another YouTuber.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
He does a show called Adam. He does a show with PSA Sitch, who's another YouTuber I like. They do it every week. And I think he retweeted one of your videos, and I think I found out about you. I started watching all your stuff, and I thought, this guy makes awesome content. And I don't know how we ended up becoming friends from there, but for those who don't know, we've gotten a lot of requests to do shows together, to collab together, and a lot of people might not know that we've actually collaborated. I've made thumbnails for you. I've done. This didn't age well. If you guys have watched Steven's videos, that's me. And I gotta ask, let's start there. Are there any videos or talking points you have made over the years that have not aged very well?
Saying that the polls were correct, going to be correct in the 2020 election was definitely it. I mean, I think that was the original video where we used this video didn't. No, that was a response to the Anna Kasparian quitting thing. Obviously, that didn't age well either. But yeah, I mean, I used to be a liberal. So I would say a lot of my stuff there didn't age well. All those videos where I'm advocating for that stuff are down now. But definitely the things that didn't age well were thinking that the polls were going to be correct. And then the pretty obvious Anna Kasparian is still on TYT. She didn't quit. So those didn't age well.
That's another thing you've been up to this year. For those who don't follow Stephen Michael Davis, you've been a real pot stirrer, shit stirrer, whatever you want to call it this year amongst the loony leftists on YouTube and the internet in general. You've done this thing where you take clips from their shows where they're talking shit about other leftists. You'll take a clip and then you'll add your own watermark where it's hard to miss. And then they'll tweet out your clip with your watermark on it, which I've enjoyed because I think Jimmy Dore shared one of them. And for those who don't know, Stephen Michael Davis has made a few videos critical of Jimmy Dore. So when Jimmy Dore tweeted that out, I said, oh, this was clipped by Stephen Michael Davis. You can see it in the lower left-hand corner. This guy makes amazing political content, and I'll drop a link in the tweet.
So it must have been when, in May or March? I can't remember, but the big clip that I sent out was Anna Kasparian talking. Can we swear on this?
Yeah.
Stream?
Well, see, okay. I was careful of swearing. I'm like, maybe he wants to upload this to his channel, and I know you bleep out a lot of the swear words, but yeah, we can swear.
Okay, well, I'm going to make it a live streams channel soon enough, and I'll upload everything like that.
But okay, there are two words you can't say. You can't say a V word, not vagina, but it has to deal with, okay, you know?
Yeah, I heard your monologue and that you got a strike, so I'm not going to say that word.
Okay. And also, a word on Twitch, it's an S word that's usually just to use to describe people who dive on grenades for women, so to speak. Can't say that word either. But other than that, swear words are good.
That's weird that one is outlawed, but it is. Anyways, I want to say it was in March or May, one of those months that starts with an M, that Anna Kasparian was talking shit about Aaron Mate. And it was in one of their post games. At the very end of one of their post games, those are their bonus episodes. You have to be a member to watch those. Even though, most of the stories they cover on those, they put up anyways, there's some banter, some dialogue that doesn't make the cut to YouTube. And so I decided, and I DM'd you and our other friend Kenny, that this was going to be a big old bomb. And I lobbed it on there, and it blew up. And I made sure to put my logo there because I knew that some people were going to take it and post it. So,
because you've had other people take your clips that you've clipped and then they try to run off with it like they took credit for finding this, right?
Yeah. So I had done this before, like Anna Kasparian called Michael Tracy a neckbeard once, and I posted that. That didn't like super blow up, but Michael Tracy found out about it real quick.
I mean, is she really off that much with that comment?
No, I mean, Michael Tracy is a neckbeard. Love him or hate him, he's a neckbeard.
Hey, broken clock, right twice a day.
Yeah, so that was funny and everything, but that's that's just a cheap shot. So that's not like that doesn't cut to anything. Doesn't really cause like a fissure in the left. But then, what was it? It was at the very beginning of the year. I posted a clip of Anna fighting with Jank, where she just like calls him out, and like Jank was humiliated. I posted that to Twitter because I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, because
then
Wasn't he like going off
What's that?
about something and she's like, where are you hearing that? And he had no source and you can just kind of.
Yeah. So there's a thing that Jank does where he's like, the mainstream media said da. Like it'd be like me going, yeah, then Kirk Wilcox is like, I'm gonna go kick these babies. That's like the equivalent.
Well, I try to keep that private, so watch it.
he just completely puts words in the mouths of people, and because he hides behind a vagary like mainstream media,
Because they're corrupt! Because
Yeah.
they're bought by the billionaires!
it was after this was after the January 6th thing, and he was talking about like, and the media just like they don't call Trumpers bad or anything like that, and it was like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
media? And like Jake didn't have an answer, and she's like, I want you to be specific, and he couldn't say anything because she just makes shit up. And so I tweeted that out, and then Undoomed tweets it as if you can do that thing where you tweet out a video and it still has you as the person who posted it.
Yeah.
And he didn't do that. He just basically downloaded it and reposted it. He didn't tag me or anything like that. So I was butthurt about that. But I learned a good lesson that I need to watermark something if I'm going to post it. So
Goddamn right.
I did that to a bunch of videos starting, again, I don't remember if it was March or May, of Anna talking shit about Aaron Mate.
Yeah.
And I knew Aaron was friends with Jimmy Dore. And so it blew up. And now,
Also,
there's
props
a lot.
to Anna Kasparian. She was right. And that was a pretty good rant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I've always, when people ask me who the worst, like, leftist YouTuber is, I usually say Jimmy Dore. Because he's so bad in so many ways. And, like, yeah, he's worse than Anna and Jank.
Be careful. I think someone in my chat earlier said Jimmy was the best of the left-wing commentators.
No, he's the worst. Like, I remember seeing a video of Sargon of Akkad where he's like, I think I could tolerate Jimmy. I wouldn't call him an unpatriotic communist. It's like, that is exactly how I would describe him. An unpatriotic, America-hating communist. Like, just because he doesn't, he pals around with Tucker Carlson and he doesn't go super woke on things that, oh, well, he's better. But no, he is like someone who brings on people who shill for the CCP and people
Venezuela.
who shill for, and people who shill for dictators like Nicolas Maduro and Bashar al-Assad. But, he says war bad, so...
Has Marxist intellectuals like Richard Wolff on his show. I think that was like one of the first times I ever found out about Richard Wolff.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're just going to pal around with this communist like he's not a piece of crap? Like communism hasn't been thoroughly embarrassed for over 100 years, and it's just like, oh, well, this is what Karl Marx really said.
Blow it out your ass.
Right. He's got the worst of the worst. So I was obviously this rift existed before I did anything. But I was glad to, throw another log on the fire, or in this case, a bottle of gasoline. It's funny, with all my political commentary, some people think that I'm like an activist or I have a goal. I really don't.
I was going to say that about you. A common theme I noticed from your channel, and this is like a big motivator for me. It's not like a prime, but it's a big motivator. Is for me, I just don't like seeing lies and bullshit on the internet. This has been a problem with me for years, even like way before I got on YouTube. And I was wondering that about you because it seems like your channel seems to be really concerned with just addressing common terrible arguments and lies and myths and misconceptions.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I spend so much of my time on Twitter, I'm doing this less, is because I argue with people who just, spit out random bullshit that just isn't true. And like that, it's Twitter, so it's not a great medium. You're limited to 280 characters. You can't like implement all the things you want to.
And like,
so that's
what was
kind
it?
of how I
5 years ago,
that?
it was just 140. It was a lot harder to
Yeah.
argue on Twitter then.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I have something about people saying stupid shit confidently just sets me off. So that's basically why I make videos. It's a form of catharsis in a way for me. But if I wanted to be an activist, posting random clips of people talking shit about each other is way more effective at actually changing things in the real world, apparently.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Vernaculus, who's giving a super chat saying, it's because you're corrupt. You take your donor money.
This is true.
So thank you, Vernaculus. Action Jackson says, I concur for $10. Thank you. And then Zoomer Zalmi gave $1 earlier. Thank you, Zoomer Zalmi. Thank you, guys. And I will say, I will split the super chats with you, Steven, because you've taken time out of your day to come onto my show. So after, after taxes and I, factor in other costs like my iMac, which I'm still like $1,600 in the hole for, my internet service for the year, the money I spent on a stock video footage package to take to mock a Second Thought, that socialist goof. After all of the other shading accounting I will give you half of the super chat. So
sounds good. Or I'll have you do another voiceover for me. We'll figure something out.
Hell yeah.
I love being called a grifter, but like people are like, you're a grifter, but you're not popular. I guess they never say I'm good at it, but it's like, you really don't get that I don't make that much money off of YouTube. It's like, if the goal was to make money, I'd be way more productive if I just put the hours I put into my channel at my job.
Yeah, because a lot of times you won't even put up for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Apparently you need to post at least every week to get those Koch brother checks. So
yeah, how much are those Koch brother checks, by the way?
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. You're I don't know. It's I have them deliver. They paid me once, but it was in a burlap sack with a $sign on it, filled with coins. So yeah,
it's the best way. I was hoping to be one of those big cardboard checks like you get if you win the lottery.
No, you have to be like at actual Justice Level Warriors subscribers to get that. Then they'll give you the big check.
Another living embodiment of trickle-down economics. I've seen him shout out you before. He shouted out me before. And I think I've picked up like 2/3 of my audience this year from him becoming a fan of my channel. So, and I'd like to get him on the show sometime. And I've also gotten requests. I don't know about you. People have gotten requests for all three of us to get on and have a stream.
Oh, for sure.
That would be awesome. So look forward to that, folks. Unofficial.
Yeah, Sean is responsible for a huge part of my audience too. So big thanks to him.
So a lot of what you do is you respond to other big YouTubers like the Young Turks, like Secular Talk, Jimmy Dore, the Humanist Report, even some on the right like Sagar and Tucker Karl Marxson. Do you have any particular commentators that you like to respond to? Anyone that you're like, oh, I can't wait to get this guy next?
Well, as you know, Kirk, it's all clout chasing. But when like I said earlier, something about people saying stupid shit confidently really gets a rise out of me.
Yeah.
Which is why Cenk Uygur is in so many of my videos and Kyle Klinsky, because they say stupid shit confidently. But I will say,
there's such an air of smugness to Secular Talk.
Yes.
And that's something else that bothers me about him is he's kind of he calls himself Secular Talk. So when you first come to his channel, at least this is the impression. It's like, oh, this is like a voice for atheism. He approaches politics by, going after religious nuts. But no, a lot of it is just socialist. I know he doesn't call himself a socialist, but when you go to I think I remember him going to Politicon and him bragging about how Justice Democrats got a bunch of Democratic socialists elected. So, and when he praises intellectuals like Richard Wolff, who he calls a brilliant economist. All right, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's probably a communist.
And he's taken those tests before, and he's gotten libertarian socialists and stuff like that. So, I like this idea that he has maybe some small vestiges of capitalism left, but that's he's pretty much post-capitalist, as they say. But the most annoying show to me is actually Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. They are, and I don't talk about them that much, but that will change soon. Trust me. Stay tuned for that.
Oh yeah, something to look forward to, folks. I feel like I need to get them more on my radar. I don't pay enough attention to those clowns. But something that I noticed when they went on, because they used to do Rising on the Hill, and then they went to Breaking Points. In the background of their set, they have a book from Noam Chomsky. I think it's the
Manufacturing Consent.
Yeah. And I want to ask you about this. I think you're about to say something, but we often talk about like people in the media like Secular Talk, Tucker Carlson, Jimmy Dore, whoever, when I think the real battle is intellectuals, because a lot of the people in the media, myself included, by the way, I obviously get a lot of my influence and inspiration from objectivist intellectuals, free market intellectuals. I am curious to know, like, which intellectuals have shaped you, but I think you were going to say something before I went to that.
As far as like, well, I was gonna say just that Crystal and Saga are like the worst combination of the worst people in politics, the socialist populist and the conservative nationalist populist, and the fact that they made a show together where they're super smug and they just bash the media. And I have no love for the media, but like that's their entire show was like, hey, did you see what they said about Joe Rogan? Boy, CNN sucks. It's like, okay, this is wonderfully derivative. You know, I was in the shower the other day listening to a secular talk video, and he was talking about how like Axios wrote an article about where they interviewed Crystal and Sagar, and they said, and the person who wrote the article said something kind of dismissive or disparaging. I don't even remember. And Kyle just went on like a 10-minute rant about it. It's like, dude, you guys spend like half of your content is bashing the mainstream media. And then the mainstream media pushes back once and you start crying. It's like, that's just, I don't know. Like they don't realize that turnabout is fair play. Like they consistently misrepresent people in the mainstream media. Then they start crying about it when their views are supposedly misrepresented. But
I think you've pointed out before too, is that as bad and corrupt as the mainstream media can be, like these commentators, myself included, we would not exist without the mainstream media putting out the articles, doing the investigative work, whatever they do. And because Kyle relies a lot on like bringing in articles and talking about news clips that would not exist without someone like CNN or MSNBC or Fox News really, I don't want to say subsidizing, but funding all of these operations.
Yeah. And first of all, let me just say, in case I wasn't clear, there's nothing wrong with derivative content. As long as I do commentary and derivative content, that's fine. As long as you don't try and pass yourself off as journalism or news or anything like that. And I think, and there are tons of problems with the mainstream media. The thing is, I don't think independent media really is all that much better because I think they ultimately face a similar host of incentives. So like, I don't think that like some people think that we're in some brand new age and we just need to win over the audience. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think the problems with media will continue regardless of the medium. Anyways, you asked me about my favorite like intellectual thinkers.
Yeah, like which intellectuals have like shaped your approach on I guess on politics in general and how you approach politics.
So probably the number one is Kevin D. Williamson. He is a writer at National Review. Really smart guy, excellent writer. Probably the best writer who's alive, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased. His way of thinking, I think, is very clear and straightforward. He reminds me a lot of Christopher Hitchens, who is another guy who influenced me immensely. Just the kind of way he cut. I try to emulate myself. His ways, logic just kind of cuts through stuff. Thomas Sowell, obviously, big fan of his. So, and weirdly, Charles Darwin is another one. So,
oh, you believe we came from monkeys, Stephen?
Yeah, and I actually, it's why I'm a capitalist, because I think that anybody who's weak and poor and can't work for themselves should die. So, natural selection.
What a sick joke.
No, but I do think, going back to what I said earlier, the intellectuals are, a lot of people talk about the media, but when you think about, journalism and all journalists and people in the media, most of them, if not all of them, maybe besides like Tim Pool, I think he's like proud of being a high school dropout, which good for him. He's made a good living for himself.
Quite, yeah.
Actually, I heard that secondhanded, so if I'm wrong on that, I apologize, but
I want to say you're right about that. I know he's homeless at one point, but whatever.
I don't know. But most people, they go to journalism schools, and you know how college works. Like, you got to take a bunch of university program classes. So I think when a lot of people, they go to college for journalism, for media, whatever, Then they take history classes, and they might get a history class from an intellectual like Howard Zinn. They might take an economics class from someone like a Stephanie Kelton or a Richard Wolff. And they might, they might run into Noam Chomsky, who's teaching linguistics along the way. And I think that's why a lot of people talk about, the media bias, like, oh, it's just like people who go to the media, they're just trying to carry water for the Democratic Party. No, I think a lot of it is they go to universities and then they get influenced by a lot of intellectuals they come across. And I can speak from experience because I majored in broadcasting at CMU, and when I took history classes, even from professors that I liked, a lot of them, or some of them, were admitted socialists. I remember I had to take one English writing class, which was all about, and I remember like one of the assignments we had to do was like comparing like the produce and the food at the organic grocery store with like the stuff that you'd find at like a big chain like Meijer or Walmart. For those who don't know, Meier's like the Midwest Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was at school, I studied economics and history. And some of my history teachers identified as Marxist historians. And again, I liked a lot of these teachers, but yeah, they're pretty much all left wing. That's not to say that I didn't learn anything valuable. I certainly did, or we didn't read things that were contrary to that. But yeah, definitely most of them were left wing. My economics professors, none of them were Marxists, thank goodness, but we were taught pretty standard Keynesian economics. Those were the assumptions that went into it. And yeah,
I got a lot of. It was like it wasn't like straight up like, oh, Keynesian economics is the best school. But I remember just being like in high school, like all of my history teachers totally had a Keynesian influenced approach to talking about like the Great Depression. Like, oh, it was World War II. Like it was spending that really got us out of the Great Depression.
And most of those assumptions I was certainly taught in economics and the mathematics, like, oh yeah, if you do government spending, it increases aggregate demand by X, Y, and Z. And it was like, so yeah, you're just kind of brought up into that, and you assume that's just everybody's just on the same page. And that's pretty typical of your average university. Now that was 10 years ago. I don't know what kids will be taught today in economics class. Maybe they would be taught MMT. Maybe they would be taught by a disciple of Richard Wolff. Maybe things have changed for the worse on that front. We don't know.
What else did I want to ask you about? Oh yeah, so I think that there one issue we might have disagreement on that I've noticed is the culture war.
Okay.
Before we get into that, I want to ask you, what do you think about the culture war, and what do you think the culture war is?
Okay. So about 10 years ago, like when I graduated from college, Andrew Breitbart was a big guy on the right.
I was going to say, when you mentioned Hitchens, someone asked me my thoughts on Hitchens on my video today, and I said he was a mixed bag, but I did enjoy a lot of his work. I know he used to be more of a leftist in the 80s, but I said that there are two commentators that I wish were still alive, and they died around the same time, were Hitchens and Andrew Breitbart. I think they only died like 4 months apart, but I would love to see...
Christopher Hitchens died on December 15th, 2011, so at the very end. Andrew Breitbart died in March of 2012. So yeah, right by each other. I don't know specifically what date Breitbart died, but I remember being shocked when it happened, because he was a young man. But Andrew Breitbart wrote his memoir in like 2010 called it "Excuse Me While I Save the World." And in that book, he said, culture is downstream from politics.
Or didn't he say politics is downstream from culture?
Excuse me, yes.
Yeah.
Politics is downstream from culture. I got my stream mixed up there, Kirk. And so people kind of, I run into that expression a lot. And because it's sounds real smart, people just kind of throw it out there like it's gospel.
Yeah.
I'm of a few minds on the relationship between politics and culture. I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So first of all, I do think that politics in some circumstances follows its own rules. Like, I just think winning an election is fundamentally different than writing the biggest pop song or selling the best SUV or whatever. So I think in certain circumstances, they're just facets of it that aren't comparable. What I think I have an issue with is there's a lot of rage bait here, especially online.
Oh yeah.
You know, like the Daily Caller writes some article about, oh, so and so did this and people shat on them or whatever. Or, you know, the Mr. Potato Head stuff, all that culture war stuff. And I think most of it is exactly what I said it is, just rage bait to get people worked up. And some people and there's a lot of people here on YouTube who do that. And if you ask them, some of them will just will just say, yeah, it's rage bait. It's meant to get the clicks and piss people off. And I think that's refreshingly honest. There are some people who will try and defend it by saying politics is downstream from culture. In other words, by taking on the Dr. Seuss thing, by taking on the Mr. Potato Head thing, they're actually doing the important work of fighting Marxists. There's a book about identity politics by Noah Rothman called, what is it called? I can't remember, but the 6th chapter in the 6th chapter is called Entry Level Politics. And it's sort of about how a lot of like leftist activists, you know, in America, we generally think that being plugged into policy and stuff like that is a good thing. Being, you know, politically wise is a positive thing. So a lot of people on the left, especially like, you know, college age kids, sort of, they want to be like that, but they don't actually want to put in the work of actually, you know, reading it up on economics and politics and all this stuff. So they sort of glom onto this peripheral stuff that is involved with identity politics. It's like, oh, look, I posted a Black Lives Matter, you know, sigil on my Facebook. Therefore, I'm fighting systemic racism and making serious points about criminal justice.
Didn't someone call it, I think there's a term for that called slacktivism, where people, they do like the bare minimum. They think that they're changing the world, but they're not really doing much.
Yeah, and they think that they're politically engaged by doing it. And I think there's something like it that exists on the other side. Oh, by talking about this culture war stuff, sort of this trivial stuff. Oh, I'm fighting Marxism because it's cultural Marxism. And I think that's mostly just bullshit. There is one respect in which it's undeniably true that politics is downstream from culture, especially if you define culture in a very broad sense. Like, what sort of values should we have? What is the relationship that people have to each other? And what's the relationship they should have to their government? That is undeniably like translating to politics. So if you want to define it as that, I would say sure, but it's almost tautological at that point that it's so true. So what do you think about that?
Well, I do agree with a lot what you said. I think the culture war is important, but like you said, I think a lot of the culture warriors, and I think more needs to be made of that, because, you know, for years everyone mocked the social justice warriors on the left, rightfully so, I would say.
Yep.
But I think we need to start mocking these crazy culture warriors that do pick the lamest, weirdest battles. Like, Dr. Seuss decided they were pulling 6 books from publication. I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble and take a selfie of me picking up the books. You're not gonna change like an election outcome in 5 years with that shit.
Yeah. Or like Nike. Or Colin Kaepernick Nike paid Colin Kaepernick, so now I'm gonna burn my Nike shoes. I'm fighting the power. It's like, no, you're just doing this for clicks. I know it.
We did it, guys. We beat the left. But I think, so the culture warriors, they pick the lamest battles. They look crazy when doing it. But the people who know what they're doing, they're fighting for something really bad, which I think ultimately is a form of religious conservatism. And you see this more from the people who know what they're doing. They're trying to get more Americans, especially younger Americans. They're trying to convince them to, you know, go to church regularly, start a nuclear family. And they know if they do that they've essentially created a likely Republican voter for the next 50 years. And if they instill those values in their children, you've probably created 4. But what consequence is going to come from that? We're probably going to eventually have some sort of mysticism, a culture centered around mysticism, which I don't think anything good can come from that. So I do think it matters, but also it's more of a long-term thing. Like, you buying a Dr. Seuss book or throwing your Nikes in the garbage and posting a video of it on Instagram, that's not going to change anything in 5 years. But I think when you have certain movies, TV shows, songs, music that promote certain values, they can either be destructive long term or they can be good long term. And I think you're seeing that with people like I was working on a video about this, and then I came to a writer's block on this issue, and then I ended up pivoting to the FDA video. But something I was thinking about is I think an electric car is kind of the good microcosm of this, because a lot of people, they see someone like Greta No Thunberg. A lot of her detractors like, what do people see in this activist? Like, she's saying a lot of crazy things at the UN, and a lot of people admire her as a hero and, you know, someone that's really changing the world. It's like, yeah, you know, we have generations of adults who grew up reading the Lorax, watching Captain Planet, watching after school specials like Saved by the Bell, where there's an episode where they drill for oil, and then they're all celebrating at first, but then when it kills Zach Morris's pet duck, then they go to the city hall and they say, get your oil out of here.
I never watched that show, except I have seen that episode.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How convenient. But then at the same time, so you'd say that like there's a huge environmentalist bent in our culture that motivates people to cheer on the Greta No Thunbergs of the world. But then there's like a healthy car culture, and I think America loves cars. You have movies like Cars that celebrate cars, and I think there's especially there's an affection for like the 50s aesthetic of cars. And I think Americans, they want their environmentalism, but their cars too. And that's why we eventually, and by the way, this might sound like I'm stretching, and maybe I am, but I think this is how we get the electric car, because we want environmentalism in our vehicles too. So we try to find a happy medium.
No, see, if you're talking about that level, like you said earlier, like, do we embrace religion or don't we? Of course that has ramifications. And I do believe that, yes, the music we listen to, the movies we watch, the stories we tell each other do contribute to that, of course, in aggregate. But let's not forget that these things don't come out of nowhere either. They are also a product of our culture. Like, what was it? Another thing with Hollywood is guns. You know, as much as people, there's a lot of people who whinge about guns. Watch an action movie. Guns are seen as, you know, a tool of power, I guess you could say. Yeah, they're cool. So
I think Liam Neeson got a lot of heat because he, like, after doing all these action movies where he's doing all these badass things with guns, then when it became cool to like be an anti-gun activist, he like started appearing in PSAs, and everyone's like, "Shut the fuck up, dude!" Like you help promote guns more than anyone else, more than the NRA ever could.
So I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about our movies and our songs and what would happen at the Oscars. I just think most of it is just rage bait bullshit. So that's why I'm kind of less focused on the culture war than I think some people are.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing, and maybe I'm kind of a hypocrite on this end, but like there's a lot of people talking about the culture war, but then they don't really engage in it in meaningful ways, like creating meaningful art, like music and movies. I know Daily Wire seems to be doing that. They're like making movies now, which hopefully it's nothing too bad like Passion of the Christ or crap like that.
Well, luckily it's easier than ever to get a wider reach. Thank you, big tech. So
hell yeah. But I think even like the Joker movie was kind of a big culture war moment because, and I think a lot of the people that wanted to hate that movie, like they didn't know why it was bad, that people across the political spectrum were really, why that movie was resonating with a lot of people. And it's because a lot of people just fundamentally hate, they think society and whatever our capitalist system is today, they think it's irreparably broken and it needs to be destroyed. And that's what you see in the movie. And then on top of that, you see like, it kind of calls out a lot of contradictions, maybe with the ethics of altruism, where at the end, Joker is calling out Murray Franklin. He's like, look, you preach it, about caring for others, but then, if you stepped over me on the street, you wouldn't think twice about it. And I think the overarching theme of that movie is like, yeah, society's failing. It's irreparably damaged. And then there's this victim of society, who lives in this malevolent universe where the only way to get ahead is to lie, cheat, steal from others, step over others. He can't, tells himself, he admits it, he's like, I don't know what's real half the time, and if I can't know what's real, how do I know what's good? And if I can't know what's good, then the logical consequence of that is anarchy, and you kind of see it. And even when the political ramifications play out, Joker's like, I don't even care about the political, who cares about these protesters?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about that movie, and I like that movie. I know you said you were depressed by it. And so was
felt like I needed to take a shower after watching that movie.
Well, and I believe that it was not an uplifting film if you haven't seen it. I think that's the emotion it was trying to evoke. It's very depressing. It's amazing how many people tried to own that movie.
Yeah.
Like, I remember, obviously, there's the leftist side of it because he's a guy, his government benefits literally get cut, so he can't afford his medication anymore. So all the Medicare for all people were up in arms about that. Then Dave Rubin was going off on Twitter about how it was clear that nihilism, or a clear case against nihilism and all that. And you talked about how it was like, you started with the basic premise of if you don't know what's true, then you really can't go anywhere with that. No. And it's anarchy, like you just said. So in a lot of ways, I think that's a good demonstration of good art.
Yeah. No, I mean, the aesthetics were good. I said that, like, the filmography, the cinematography, the music, it's all very fitting and it fits together well. But just like the overall theme, I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I think the fact that it resonated with a lot of not good people, I think says a lot.
This is true. So you released a video today, was it?
Yeah.
And it gave me flashbacks to when I first started YouTube, because you texted me.
By the way, I should probably mention for people who might be watching this a few days later, he's talking about my video where I say that conservatives are laying the ground for theocracy. Mm-hmm. Referencing
So you texted me like sort of the things you wanted to talk about, and one of them I believe was what got me into YouTube.
Yeah, what made you want to get into the fight? The Thunderdome.
It was, I mean, we went over this earlier, that there's a sort of something that I want in me that wants to speak out, not necessarily for a purpose, but for, satisfying my own ends, I guess you could say. But one of the things, remember, so I uploaded my first video about 10 years ago, almost exactly. Now, I have not, those first 2 years, I uploaded maybe once every other month. And then there was a good 2.5 years where I didn't upload anything at all. So, I look at that as almost a different channel. And my ideology has completely changed since then. But
well, you can be at that point. That's when the Koch brothers checks started coming in. You can.
This is true, yeah. The Koch brothers saw my early work, and they're like, "We can make this kid a star. Let's send him the money," and that's how I got back onto YouTube. But I saw that video, and it's arguments like those people were making that really got me wanting to go on YouTube. I don't know if you probably do remember this, but back then, atheism YouTube was real big.
Yeah,
that was where I first got into YouTube, was like watching people like The Amazing Atheist talk about religion, debate religious people, and stuff like that. And I also was watching, it was religion that got me to discover the Young Turks, because I would Google or I would just search Bible and stuff like that into YouTube looking for anything. And the Young Turks were the only news program. They looked like a news program. They have never really been a news program, if we're being real, that was very irreverently make fun of Christianity and the Bible and religion. And I was like, oh, I'll check these people out. Yeah. And I subscribed, and I got their news perspective. So I was a fan of TYT at the time, and I was a fan of, atheist YouTube at the time. And it was arguments like, I still have a bunch of these books. I read them at the time, and it'd be interesting to read them again, talking about, the roots of America.
Well, I think it's really easy to forget. And I think I don't know if a lot of younger people know this, but between the late 90s and the Obama victory in 2008, there was a huge concern, of just preaching religion from the right, from conservatives. It was a really big deal.
Yeah, it was. 9/11 had a lot to do with it, because we were attacked by Islamic terrorists, and George W. Bush was the president, and he was, very openly Christian, very proud about that. So there was no divorcing religion and politics at the time. So I was very much into this, debunking religious conservatives. So I read a bunch of, I can't even remember her name. Whatever. I read a bunch of the, stuff about the secular founding fathers and all this stuff. And I remember, and I still believe this, the phrase Judeo-Christian values was, obviously that's a canard in a million ways,
Oh, yeah.
Blow it out your ass.
Yeah. America was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Of course, that would mean that Judeo-Christian values believe in slavery. Now, I love America, but slavery was legal in most of this country at the beginning. That's, that was a part of our history. It's part of a lot of countries' history.
Well, you also have to contextualize that the more consistent founding fathers did want to abolish it, and they made efforts to. It just wasn't feasible politically at the time.
Exactly. And yeah, if they wanted a full nation, they had to compromise with the slave-owning states. But, I don't mind talking about this because the founding fathers were men. They're fallible. They're subject to, everything that human beings are. The fact that they're not perfect doesn't bother me. The fact that we've improved is a good thing.
Yeah.
Christianity claims to be perfect, claims to be infallible. It's like, how did it get that wrong? But of course they would go, well, that didn't count. The slave owners, they weren't real Christians, but the people who were against slavery, they were the real ones. They were the ones invoking Christianity. And they just kind of play that game. They cherry pick with that throughout American history. Oh, the civil rights leaders were true Christians. Why, they had to have this movement in the Bible Belt of all places to emancipate themselves from Jim Crow is, I've never heard them reconcile these questions. So it was those sorts of things that I wanted to take these people on with. I didn't feel that people were making the points that I could. And unfortunately, I didn't have much motivation back then because I only uploaded videos every other month, like I said. But it was that kind of stuff, the sort of stuff you went through that I really wanted to debunk. So those were my early motivations of YouTube. And it was political, but it was also religious or, secular, however you want to put it.
Yeah, I actually got a little more, I seem to get more thumbs down on the video I posted today. And I think a lot of people that come to me and they see that I, really go at leftists like Second Thought and Hassan Proletariat Piker. But then, I got to hold the conservatives in line too, because they are getting a little drunk on their religion. And I think it's become clear by now that they are making it a focal point of their movement. And now you have people like Matt Walsh, who's like no slouch. He has 600,000 followers on Twitter. He's one of the main guys at Daily Wire. He has been for years. And he's straight up saying, yeah, we should legislate morality. And we know where he gets his morality from.
Well, and I don't really talk about religion now. It's not that I'm opposed to it. It just doesn't motivate me like it used to back then. But yeah, I run into the same stuff. I mostly talk about the left and why I think they're stupid. But when I make a video where I say that Donald Trump lost the election, I'm going to get lots of angry Trumpers like, didn't you hear about the dumps and the Time magazine article? Because if only he could post nonsense on Facebook, he would have won, of course. The Time magazine article is like reverse Russiagate, because the actual claims of Russiagate were that like Russian misinformation was planted on Facebook. Therefore, people voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. And the Time magazine article is basically like, oh, they stopped doing that.
Are you talking about the New York Post article?
No, the Hunter Biden article. I'm aware of that. The Time magazine article was about, what was it? What was the language they used? Reinforcing the election. I forget. But yeah, it was there. So many people linked it to me as if it was proof that the election was rigged. It just wasn't.
Yeah. Just crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah. Allie Beth Stuckley, is that her name?
Yeah,
Stuckey?
she was, yeah.
Do you know her backstory?
I do not know.
Okay. So she was on The Blaze, as you know. Do you know how she got that job?
I do not. I have no. I just know I've been aware of her for years, and I think I used to follow her on Twitter. Then I had to unfollow her because she got annoying. But
yeah, so it's funny that they were talking about abortion with Candace Owens, because Tommy Loren used to be the Blaze TV girl.
Yeah,
and then she said on The View that she was pro-choice.
I remember that.
And then Glenn Beck fired her. And they're like, we need another hot blonde chick. So they hired Allie Beth Stuckey.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, no, they didn't say that, but she was very clearly like the replacement.
So she's like the Sony PlayStation of the Blaze Network?
Yeah. She's like, we need to. There, she's the replacement hot blonde chick because they lost their original one. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not. She's not like terrible at her job, like just being a commentator and presentable and whatnot. But
yeah, she's fine at that. But she believes some stupid shit. Let's be real.
What do you think are some of the worst myths, misunderstandings, and misconceptions in political discourse? Going back to the, just the hatred of just bullshit and misconceptions that go around. Like, what are some of the worst that you've seen that you feel like you constantly have to address?
The one that I thought that was gone back when I was in college that made a roaring comeback was the labor theory of value.
Oh, see, I never heard of that until a couple years ago.
Yeah. Okay, so I had heard about it because we had a guest lecturer and he talked about the labor theory of value. He was an advocate for it. When I was like, God, this is, and he was like, he said at the time, the lecturer, he's like, yeah, this is very marginal. Most people don't believe this, but I'm one of the last advocates for it. Well, it's made its way onto the internet and now a lot of people are repeating it. But I have a few videos where I argue against it, and every so often they'll be like, what does this have to do with somebody stealing wage labor? It's like everything comes down to labor. It's like, no, it doesn't. I always bring up the example of my own work. I made in one day a $16,000 mistake at my job. I don't want to go into specifics because I'm not supposed to talk about my work, but yeah. And guess what? I still got paid that week. Still got paid. Like the company ate the loss. Now, granted, most of my days my labor generates value for them, but they're taking a risk on me. Every day I show up, I could cost them money, I could make them money. So, and these labor theory of value people, I don't think they get the risk that capital investment comes with. Like they think that a business is just a money printing factory.
Yeah.
And as long as you're on your feet and you got people working, you're just guaranteed profits. It's like that's not the case at all. That's why most businesses close.
Yeah, the example I like to use, I used it in one of my videos responding to Richard Wolff, but it was movie productions. That a lot of movies that get made, especially blockbusters, they get the money up front, then they have to pay all the crew, the camera people, the sound, the lighting people, makeup, costume, a lot of, and then you see like the credits. As I said, like it's like a Vietnam memorial times 1,000, just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all people that had to get paid with money up front, and sometimes movies they don't make a profit, they lose money.
Most don't.
For what? Yeah, and so it's like, do you have to go chase down all those people that you paid to operate the cameras, to do the makeup, and ask for the money back? No.
Yeah, I mean, how many movies lost money because of COVID? Like when COVID hit, so many movies that were bound for the theaters didn't get on. And so what did the movie theater, or what did the studios do? They pretty much had to eat that or delay the movies. The check's still clear for all the production crew though. So yeah, they just got stuck with it.
Yeah, it sounds like the poor ownership class got their labor value stolen. Yeah, it's just so crazy. I think maybe that's a reason why people constantly, like, that's one of the biggest requests. It's always some communists talk, and they mention the labor theory of value. I'm like, this shit again?
Yeah.
What is your most un-American opinion?
My most un-American opinion. Good question. This is it's that the metric system is easier to measure things in.
Oh man, that's mine too.
Yeah.
I would prefer the metrics. It would take some adjustment, like with my odometer and shit, and like trying to get used to it. But I think overall it would be better, especially when I'm cooking. It drives me crazy when I have to like convert teaspoons to cups or whatever. Like it's never standard. And it's just like, what if I just had to convert milliliters to liters? That would be so much more convenient.
Definitely. And that's a big reason why we haven't adopted it. I mean, I was taught the metric system in school. Almost all science in America is done with the metric system.
Well, I think Tucker Carlson did a segment once. He's like, well, the metric system was founded during the French Revolution, so it's really just leftist propaganda.
Of course he said that. If you take, like, here, I have some Advil PM, and it says 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. Like, everything sciencey is measured in milligrams or grams or whatever metric system. It's just colloquially we use the standard system for most things.
So I want to play a quick game with you really quick. So for those who don't know, Stephen Michael Davis, he's a big Milwaukee sports fan. I didn't tell him I was doing this segment, but
okay.
The Milwaukee Bucks won the championship this year, and when they did, this guy was going crazy on chat. He's saying, none of you guys believed in me. We're the best. And he told everyone else to suck it, and he was just going crazy. So I wanted to quit. I want to see how big of a Milwaukee sports fan you are.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna ask you 3 questions. See how much.
All right.
So the first question is: the Green Bay Packers have won 4 Super Bowls. 3 different Green Bay Packers have won the Super Bowl MVP for those 4 Super Bowls. Who are they?
Desmond Howard, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre.
Ah, nice. Off to a good start so far. So this next one.
No, I got that wrong.
Oh wait, you said Bart Starr, right?
Bart Starr. No, I said Brett Favre. I meant Bart Starr.
You said Brett Favre. Okay, game over.
Yeah.
I
got Desmond Howard. Yeah, because I was thinking quarterback, but yeah, it was Bart Starr.
So the next one's a Milwaukee Bucks question. So. The Bucks won the championship this year, 2021, and it was their first. They were led to the championship by Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best players in the NBA. Won the MVP a couple years ago.
The best player. Sorry.
The best player. Well,
excuse me, princess.
It was their first championship since 1971 when NBA Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar led the Milwaukee Bucks to the championship. Now. For those who don't know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he went by a different name during his legendary college years at UCLA before he became part of the Milwaukee Bucks, which he changed to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for religious reasons. So my question is, what was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's name before he became a dirty, filthy, stinking Milwaukee Buck?
So I always want to say... Cassius Clay, but that is Muhammad Ali. Lou Alcindor is his name.
Oh, nice.
Well done.
And the last question is, Lambeau Field, which is the stadium that the Green Bay Packers play in, what is their record attendance to the exact number?
90,025. I have no idea.
79,704.
Okay.
Wow. I thought you were a big Milwaukee sports fan.
Oh, you absolutely suck!
What game was that for, that max attendance?
Oh, I don't know. I just brought it up here. It's on Wikipedia. Maybe someone edited the, let's see, Dallas Cowboys versus Green Bay Packers 2015.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
Were you at that game?
No, I was not.
Yeah, so I'm a Detroit Lions fan, and so we have this friendly rivalry. You're probably confused by this language because it's kind of like Nebula and Gamora's relationship in Guardians of the Galaxy, where like Gamora just always whoops Nebula's ass, never thinks twice about it, where like Nebula just wants to kill her and she never can. So what the Lions-Packers rivalry is like.
Speaking of which, they play on Monday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Monday Night Football. What a game.
Yeah.
Our 2 failing quarterbacks.
Yeah. At least you guys got something for yours. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers gets it back together. I don't know though.
Anyway, someone's mentioning any questions in the chat. I think I've run out of stuff, run out of gas. I've had you on for an hour. We can still hang out. I'm good to go for as long as possible. Don't know if you have anywhere to be.
I'll answer some questions, and I want to finish editing a video that will be that I want up. So.
Oh, damn. New content coming out soon. Well, yeah, the chat's been hot all night. I don't see any questions, though. Both chats have been hot all night. Got a lot of people in the chat tonight, 60 people
Oh, because we're on
watching.
Twitch, right?
We're on Twitch and on YouTube, so I guess technically 70 people.
Gotcha.
Progressive Apostate's watching us.
Oh, he's a Jets fan, so he knows pain.
Oh, yeah. He says Judaism and Christianity are extremely different religions despite their common ancestry. Yeah, that's another thing that confuses me is that, someone just asked thoughts on Michael Malice. I think Michael Malice, he's funny and a lot of his commentary is good. I think his views on anarchy are horribly wrong. I don't think anarchy is a good ideal political system, so I get off the boat there. But his commentary and political analysis is usually pretty good.
I don't follow him closely. I know he's a big, like, America needs to break apart, peaceful divorce, something like that, and I'm not on board with that, so.
Stephen Michael Davis, how do you feel about forced labor in China and the left loving the CCP's form of government?
I think it's pretty disgusting. And, yeah, I love, there was a video of China blowing up one of their ghost cities.
Yeah.
Or, like, a portion of it. Richard Wolff has praised those ghost cities because he thinks it's them preparing it for their coming middle class. It's like, pretty sure that's not why it happened.
And now you have the right, I think Paul Joseph Goebbels. He goes by Paul Joseph Watson on YouTube, but I think he made a video.
Paul Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're goddamn right.
He was praising China's recent authoritarian measures to like crack down on free speech, which these are the defenders of free speech. You guys remember during the anti-SJW days?
Yep.
We got we got to fight the left to save free speech. And now they're saying, yeah, you know, the Taliban and Sharia law sounds less worse than the left.
That was always the whole free speech thing was such bullshit on so many levels. It was mostly just like, oh, I said the N-word and people got mad. Whatever happened to free speech? There was a ton of that. I'm not saying that there are no problems with cancel culture. There absolutely are. I'm not saying that people don't get outraged over bullshit. There absolutely are. I'm saying that there's an enormous amount of hypocrisy from the erstwhile free speech warriors like Dave Rubin and Paul Joseph Stalin.
Yeah. And that, I said that, I think Paul Joseph Goebbels has said before that, like, Sharia law is less worse than the left or whatever, but now he's praising Chinese authoritarianism. Jorge Ramirez asks, what progressive policies do you agree with? I think I'll start. I think this is a progressive policy. I don't think prisons should be privatized.
I think that's a good one. I'm for ending the war on drugs, which I think most progressives are for.
Yeah.
I'm for Caesar asset forfeiture.
Civil asset forfeiture.
I wanted to say seizure asset forfeiture for some reason, but yeah, civil asset forfeiture is robbery by cop. It should be ended. So I think I'm generally on the same page as the left on some of those criminal justice questions.
And a lot of progressives are generally against surveillance state stuff like the NSA, right? Yeah. So I'd agree with them.
Me too. I think that the federal government needs to live within the confines of the Constitution. So, progressives are kind of selective on that question, but I will take it on the question of Fourth Amendment.
Oh, both sides are.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Well, the left they like to claim the founding fathers because like they wanted some representation in government that was one of the reasons why they got away from England, and then they conclude from that we were meant to be a democracy. It's our democracy when they were adamantly opposed to democracy through by mob rule. And conservatives are very selective too. I always say that conservatives, Republicans, they only care about the Constitution when, one, there's a Democrat in the Oval Office, and or two, there's a mass shooting. Then they say it's Second Amendment, but Fourth Amendment they stopped caring about years ago. They never cared about the Ninth or the 10th Amendment. I mean, sometimes they might get antsy about states' rights, but when, when President Trump is signing executive orders to control drug prices or tariff steel, they suddenly shut up about all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, did you see Candace Owens today?
Oh,
railing against the Patriot Act, and Glenn Greenwald was like, "Oh, wow!" Like, dude, as soon as the president has an R next to his name, she's not going to give a shit.
No.
And Glenn Greenwald is going to be too busy pointing out the hypocrisy of MSNBC's coverage on that president. So, I don't know. That was pretty dumb by Glenn, and I got some shit on that for Twitter. Like, is she wrong though? It's like, I don't think she's wrong. I'm just accusing her of being insincere. Those are two different charges.
Speaking of which, you just put out a video about why the populist left and right won't align, and you were asking what you should title it. And I said you should title it "Why Kirk Wilcox is Wrong," because back in January, I put out a video speculating that we might be seeing them come together. And I would like to clarify that. I think they would only align under a right-wing populist like a Josh Hawley or a Tucker Carlson. I don't think the populist right will ever go for any of the craziness from the left, but the populists on the right, like a Josh Hawley or Tucker Carlson, if they were to campaign on like maybe having a national health insurance policy where they forced employers to provide health insurance, or if they really went after like big tech and the establishment, I could see some people from the populist left coming under that umbrella if they didn't really make a big issue about some of the social stuff like guns and abortion.
So I argued in that video that I think, in theory, they could unify around this. Like, let's have the government do this. Let's have the government provide X benefit. Let's have the government subsidize Y industry.
Yeah.
I think in theory, a lot of people believe in that stuff. I think the big difference between liberals and conservatives is their questions on who those things ought to benefit. And I think those are really difficult questions to tackle for those sides. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, where I think it would stop with someone like a Josh Hawley, which I don't even think he's going to be a contender anymore after January 6th. But say hypothetically, if he were to run on like a national health insurance plan, like the minute I think a lot of progressives, a lot of populist leftists, they would get off the boat because he's such an anti-abortionist to the point where he won't approve of a Supreme Court justice unless they say that Roe v. Wade was decided wrongly. So I think a lot of people on the left would just get off on that issue alone.
You're probably right.
Any other questions? Steven mentioned TJ Kirk, but is he a Devin Tracy viewer or fan? I don't know much about Devin Tracy. I know a lot. I think our friend Actual Justice Warrior likes him. I've never. I think Kevin Castley used to reference him a few times. I don't know much about Devin Tracy. So
Devin's funny. He makes fun of TYT a lot. He was one of the first people to go after Kyle Kalinske back when before that was popular. The thing is, he got kicked off of YouTube, and I followed him once for one video on Censored TV about Steve Shives and how he was cheating on his wife despite being a male feminist. But I have, I'm not going to keep my subscription at Censored TV, so sorry, the censors got you, Devin.
Top anime crossovers of 2021: Kirk Wilcox and Stephen Michael Davis. Are we an anime crossover?
I don't know. I do have an anime logo that is my Twitter avatar. You don't have one though, so.
Someone says, Kirk, how can you recommend how to get into objectivism? I would watch Leonard Peikoff's video Intro to Objectivism, which I actually sent to someone earlier. I would say just try to read as much material as you can. I would say start. I got in through it backwards because objectivism, it's a fully integrated philosophy that starts with metaphysics and then epistemology, then ethics, then politics. And I kind of started with the politics and went backwards. And I would say the more interesting stuff is the stuff about ethics and epistemology, although the stuff on epistemology can be really heavy. But for politics, if you're really interested in politics and capitalism, I would recommend Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, and then The Virtue of Selfishness.
Cool.
Yeah. What politician do you identify most with? I would say Justin Amash, although he's not really in Congress anymore. I would say it's his replacement now, Peter Meyer, because not only do I seem to agree with him the most, but he uses a lot of Rick and Morty memes. He's an heir of the Meyer family fortune, which is the grocery store I mentioned earlier in Michigan. I love Meyer as a store, so I would say Peter Meyer.
He tweeted, was he the one who tweeted out that, I've seen what you people applaud meme to, when Trumpkins were after him?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Definitely for me, it's Cori Bush of Missouri. She.
What a sick joke.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I know the guy who I liked most who ran for president was John Delaney, but he had a 0% chance of winning, and definitely
really
don't agree with
triggered
him on
the
everything.
left.
What's that?
Didn't he really trigger the left with because he
Yes.
wasn't nearly, he was definitely the most moderate of
Because he's like, capitalism is good and we need to worry about the debt. And of course, they were like, no, modern monetary theory. Yeah.
opinions
But-
on Jonah Goldberg and David French. I like Jonah Goldberg. I don't know much about David French. I think I follow him on Twitter, but I've never really read much of his work.
I like both of them a lot. David French is the sort of Christian that I can live with because he is very much a defender of constitutional liberty in that, like, as long as I'm able to practice my religion freely, I'm not going to try and legislate it against you. Excuse me.
I would like to clarify that too. Like, I can tolerate if you want to be religious, fine. You be you. I might mock you. I might mock your religion, but hey, you're free to practice it. I'm not gonna, come be arrogant about being an atheist. I'm pretty tolerant about it.
He has.
In fact,
he had.
I'll take it a step further. You know what really pisses me off is when atheists get too carried away with this shit about stuff that doesn't matter. When they try to make a big issue about taxing churches, they can fuck off with that.
Yeah. David French had not a big spat. For people who pay attention to this politics space, a spat with Sorb Amari, who is a fairly recent convert to Christianity, whereas David French is like a lifelong Christian who's very much fought for religious liberty in the courts and whatnot. And Sorb Amari's like, no, we need to, militant Christianity, basically advocating for soft theocracy. And David French is like, no, that's not going to work. First of all, that's immoral in its own right. Second of all, that's going to be used against us at some point. We need a free society, which I'm down with.
I forgot to check over on Twitch. Musical Raleigh says, thoughts on voluntary taxes. This is what I'm going to say about, I've talked about this before. I think ideally we should try to move to a tax-free society. But a voluntarily funded government would be one of the last stages in a truly free society. That's not the hill to fight on right now. And I think in a free, rational society, first of all, with a freer market, the economy would be exploding. We'd have so much wealth. And with the government shrunk down to its proper function, which is the protection of individual rights and property rights, it'd be such a minuscule part that, like, billionaires like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, they just fart and, like, the government would be funded. It'd be such a minuscule part, and we'd have so much wealth we wouldn't even think about it. It'd be like, oh, it's $5,000? That's nothing. So thoughts on voluntary taxes? I would say the focus should be moving people more into a rational, self-interested, and making the case that we really need to shrink government to its proper function before we talk about voluntarily funding the government.
I would agree with that. I would. My position is that you know how to spend your money better than the government does.
Yes.
So the more money you have in your pocket versus the amount going to Uncle Sam or your state and local government is better use of that money.
And I often hear arguments about this, like, what about freeloaders? Yeah, there might be some freeloaders that don't pay their taxes from year to year. And I would say, a store like Walmart, they probably have a lot of shoplifters. They probably lose a lot of money from people who just, sneak out with stuff. And it's like, they're still a highly profitable business. You wouldn't say, oh, well, what are we going to do if people might get away with stealing from our company? Like, yeah, it sucks. They shouldn't do that. But at the end of the day, you should focus on long-term profits. And, I forgot the other point I was going to make on that.
Right now, I will say that I think it's unrealistic. But
yeah. Oh, definitely. Especially, I don't think we're going to get to a voluntarily funded, but we can advocate and try to push for a better, freer society. That's my focus. Actually, my focus is just making fun and funny content for you guys to watch, and hopefully it changes the way some people think. But quick question on objectivism: How do objectivists justify morality without a god? I made a video about that earlier. So everyone has free will. When you recognize that reason is our basic tools of survival, you only get one life in this universe, you have the free will. And if you're going to choose to live, if you're going to choose life, then you're going to want morality would be based on using your mind to take the actions necessary to sustain your life and live a good life. Because if you're going to choose to live, why are you going to want to choose to live a miserable life? So morality is taking the actions necessary to live and sustain a good life and live a happy life. And decisions that are anti-life, that are antithetical to that, that destroy life, destroy happiness, that's what's evil.
I would say that Christopher Hitchens was the first one I heard this point made by, or who I can't talk today. The first person who I heard make this point. Supernatural has absolutely nothing to do with morality. Introducing that into the equation doesn't do anything.
You're goddamn right.
So there you go.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, when you really look at the religions, they are ultimately pro-death because your whole purpose in life is to serve the supernatural in hopes of getting harmony in an afterlife. So,
Well, they're consequentialist, especially Christianity. Like, yeah, you need to sacrifice and worship God in this life so that you can have eternal bliss in the next. Like, that's the ultimate goal. That's what God is hanging over your head. It's like, okay, eternal bliss or eternal suffering.
yeah.
It's consequentialist. It just takes it beyond, into the infinite, as they would say.
And as I talked about in my video earlier, you're not even supposed to think about good and evil. That's God's job, and God already did it for you. So,
Yep.
and I think a lot of today's Christians, they try to pick and choose what they want to do, and they try to rationalize it. They can't decide if the Bible's supposed to be literal or metaphorical, and they seem to be. I mean, they don't want to talk about legislating morality. Usury is considered one of the greatest evils throughout the Bible. So you're gonna outlaw money lending? I'm sure the left would love that, but
right. And Tucker Carlson might too, or capping interest rates at a certain amount so that poor people can't get loans.
yeah, I think I got into it with someone the other day that said oh, well, when Jordan Peterson uses a word like sacrifice, he's meaning you're making decisions for your long term. I was like, yeah, I think he's incorrectly using it because in that context, then Wall Street investment bankers would be considered the saints of our time because they are in the business of taking money and investing it and giving it up for the long term. Wow, I got from Juan Herrera gave us $100 Mexican, which I think is $20, or is that
sweet,
or $5? I think it's 20 to 1, but I'll take it anyway. Thank you. I got to play the drop. What's both your opinions on Switzerland's direct democracy? I don't know enough about Switzerland. Politicians have less power. They constantly vote to reduce taxes to keep peace. No espionage, Patriot Act, good gun policy. I've heard that their healthcare policy is actually pretty decent, relatively speaking. It's not perfect, but it seems like it might even be an improvement on the United States, where they have private insurance but heavily subsidized public option.
It is similar to Obamacare,
okay,
as I understand. Again, I don't know much about Swiss politics either. I know it's a smaller country. That's about all I know about it. Sorry. I know they're very neutral when it comes to foreign policy.
They make wonderful army knives. I think our friend David Walker once asked me about and I said I would look into it, and then I never did. Now I feel like an asshole. Oh, well. And someone confirmed it's $5. I did the math wrong.
Okay.
Well,
that's nice of him all the same.
Juan Herrera says it's Obamacare done right. I mean, I don't think Obamacare is done right, but I think I'm not saying Obamacare is good, but when you add it in the context of the fact that the U.S. healthcare, insurance, and drug industries are already way too complicated to begin with, and there's all this legal battles and administration costs. It might be more efficient in Switzerland the way it's set up.
Anyways, I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
And then I'm going to try and finish this video. So if you don't mind, I'd like to head on out.
Oh, no problem. Well, where can people find you, Steven?
They can find me at Twitter. I'm most active there, at ScubaMySteve. Or they can just put in Stephen Michael Davis into YouTube, STEPHEN, not VEN, into their YouTube search bar, and I should come up.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Stephen Michael Davis, for hanging out today. Really look forward to your next video. And everyone, if you haven't already, check out my good friend, Stephen Michael Davis.
Thanks for having me, Kirk.
Thank you.
Take care.